Hey there, welcome to For the Love of Creatives podcast. I'm Maddox and I'm here with Dwight, my,
Hello.
my co-host. Today, our guest is Ross von Rosenberg. Ross, welcome to the podcast. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Maddox and Dwight. I couldn't be happier to be here.
Yes, we had a fumble up the last time he had an appointment to record this. We got a little distracted and missed our own appointment. So this is take two, and we thank you so much for your grace and patience. I'm going to turn it over to you, Ross, and let you tell our listeners who you are and what you're about.
Okay, yeah, thank you. My name's Ross von Rosenberg. I live in East Dallas, and I'm an artist. I've lifelong been an artist. I would even say at this point I'm really a creative is a better description. Like my primary mode is painting, but I've worked in photography, graphic design. I still work in graphic design, collage. I even write on occasion, although I've never really published anything. But um, I'm a person that I really like to consider myself as a creative to be an explorer. Um, my interests as an artist tend to be a little bit kind of more 30,000 foot view above what are kind of more of the kind of like day-to-day earthly concerns, I guess, or whatnot. It's like I'm more kind of thinking about the bigger when I'm dealing with humans and human emotions. I'm thinking a little bit more of, but broadly, of like the universal quality of the human experience. And so that's kind of what I'm interested in. But then I'm also just interested in expression for its own sake. And I think anybody who sees my work or like goes to my website, like they'll see that like where I was at one time is like I am now in totally a different place. And I hope to when I'm 60 to be in a different place and 70 and so on. The finished products are great, but the journey is a big part. So
Isn't it beautiful that we get to go through that metamorphosis as many times as we like, and a few times when we don't like?
yeah,
Yes, we change throughout our lives, and isn't it grand that that's the case? I don't understand people that don't like change.
Well,
yeah,
sometimes it's a little hard when you're close to it. I mean, we're told in some of the ancient traditions that we have to find the gift in everything, but it can be really hard when you're in the middle of it.
yeah, yeah. No, and that's the thing. And when you're in the middle of it, I feel like sometimes it's like you don't even it's not even that you don't even realize it, but you maybe don't even realize how whatever it is kind of exerting its power onto you. And then when you step back, you're like, why did I make these decisions to create this? And then it all of a sudden it's like a light bulb goes off and you go, oh, this is what I was reacting to, you know.
Mhm.
um it's like the most recent, like the show y'all came to, those abstract pieces. I didn't realize at the time, but like I was reacting to, and I think I mentioned this in the artist talk, I was reacting to feeling out of control about so many things in my life, with like my time, time versus career versus all these things. And I was like basically exerting control on the canvas within an inch of its life. I was like, I'm going to control these things. But then you can see the tension of what I was creating fighting back against me a little bit. And it wasn't until like I was halfway through those, I kind of just realized, I'm like, oh, I know what's happening here. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people don't always necessarily think of abstract colors and shapes and brushstrokes as like human and emotional. People tend to
Oh,
think of it more as aesthetic and decorative, and it's just like, no, it came from a very, very like deep place that I didn't
yes.
realize it was happening at the time.
It is very deep, and because it's abstract, it doesn't have any bearing on it. I think it's interesting because you're describing realizing how representational it is of your life after you work on the piece, after you paint the piece. And I'm a baby artist. I'm a newer artist. I haven't been painting for a long time, and I am finding the same thing. I listen to artists talk about, I was going through this, and so I sat down and poured it all out on canvas or poured it out in whatever medium they're working in. And I just can't relate to that at all. I mean, I hear it, but for me, when I paint, it's just my 7-year-old smearing pretty colors on a surface. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just fun. I'm just playing. But then, like you, afterward, I've been reflecting recently. I painted a little bit, dabbled a little bit a few years ago, but now it's maybe been 5 or 6 months that I'm actively painting.
Yeah.
And I sat last week or two, I don't know, a couple of weeks and really looked at the pieces that I've painted. And I could see a theme. I could see how they correlated to what was going on inside of me at the
Yeah.
time I painted them. And it was like I had never heard anybody describing it like that. Everybody, all the artists that I had heard talk about it, it was always this pre-thought thing.
Yeah.
I'm grieving, so I'm going to pour my grief out onto the canvas. And me, I'm thinking, gee, I'm not sure I'm a real artist because all I'm doing is just smearing pretty colors on the canvas. But when I had that moment when I could look back and realize how representational it was, some parts of them were representational for what I was going through in the moment. And
Yeah.
then there's this overall theme. You can see aspects of me on an ongoing basis
Mhm.
in there. It's like, yes. And it's been I would and this I'm leading it I'm long lead way into a question, but
Yeah.
um it's been really fabulous to realize that it was connected to me in a deeper level than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering how long you had to paint because you discover that it's after the painting too. It's like you look back
Yeah.
and you go, "Oh, how long did you have to paint before you had that awareness? Or maybe you had it right away? Or
Yeah.
tell me a little story about how that unfolded, please."
Yeah, no, it's interesting because and it's like yeah, it's like y'all saw my show in Art on Main. There was the older work that was more figurative and stuff, and had like, human figures, and it was a little bit more surrealistic and stuff. So it's like it's really interesting. I first kind of made a conscious transition because I am very, in a way, calculated as an artist. I do a lot of planning. I have a lot of doodles and stuff, and I really think about, particularly prior when I was doing more representational work. It's like you're showing people, like I'm thinking about what's the story I'm telling here? Why do I have these people doing this and stuff? But I made a conscious transition of like, I wanted to explore things that were looser, more abstract, less worried about narrative and things like that. So, which was really hard because it's like so many people do abstract artwork and whatnot. Like, so I wanted to do something that where I was like, it's not going to look like what everybody else does. Like, so I thought about it for a long time, and I started doing these pieces on wood. And they're very much a cousin to the very, very tight geometric ones that y'all saw at the show. But those were very much kind of me just kind of exploring the space, so to speak. Like it was a very kind of like formal kind of exercise. And then I switched up to these ones on canvas, and I would say it was like midway, probably painting through the series. There was a piece. I don't know if y'all remember it. It was real red, and it was kind of like these rectangles that were kind of ticking down and twisting. And it
Mhm.
was like I really felt like I was fighting it. And what was interesting is I had little sketches and had planned these because again, I like to plan. I like to have like a foundation, so I kind of know where I'm going. But it would always, all of these would always kind of tilt away from that. Like it was like they would take a life of their own, and it was that particular piece. I just felt like the name of the piece is called like "Been So Far I Fucking Break," you know? And so I just felt like it was like I was about to bend and break, and I felt like I was fighting against the painting. And that was the moment where I realized that, probably like 1 in the morning on a Saturday, I realized like I am trying to organize chaos right here. Like I feel like I am in chaos. I feel like I'm out of control. And so I am exerting control over the one thing, but even that is like fighting against me in a way of saying like you can only control so much, allow the chaos to happen, you know, allow some of the spontaneity and, stop fighting against it so much. So it was about like halfway, but it was that particular painting where it was like I really realized these were coming from a what had started out with these ones on wood, like I said, very formal, like and just kind of like I was doing it almost a design, a purely aesthetic project. And then these, like I then realized I was like they were deeply emotional. But it took a while there. It just kind of, like I said, it was kind of a light bulb going off.
I don't remember you. I was there at the artist talk, and I don't remember you saying that it was all connected to control, but that makes sense. When of course, viewers, most people listen to this rather than see it if you see it on YouTube. But your art, what we saw, you know,
Hmm.
had well, first of all, I just want to say we go to galleries like weekly. We are all
Yeah,
over it. We are seeing art like all the time.
that's
We see a
awesome.
we
I,
see
I
a
wish I had the bandwidth to do that. That's awesome.
we see a lot of art, and I can say without a doubt, I have never seen anything like the pieces that we saw, your
Thank you.
pieces that day. They are very unique, but there was, you're right, a level of control in those pieces. It was like it, I mean, I would just imagine that there was down to the millimeter measurements,
Yeah.
and there was a precision, and the lines were, I don't know if you tape those off when you
Mm,
paint, but
yeah.
the even that, there is to be a precision with that tape when you're doing, especially when it's not a straight line, when it's a curve,
Yeah.
to
Those I
get
did
that
not tape.
tape
I did not
smooth.
tape the circles.
The precision was something that it was so precise that you would have thought perhaps a machine did it. That's how
Yeah.
precise it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I've just never seen anything like it. And then yet there were these gradations of color that were, it was, it's a standout. We see a lot of art, and it is definitely a standout. But I love that you're talking about how it connects to your, being feeling out of control and wanting to control something. And I relate to that because I have some control stuff myself, and I am trying to let go of control so I don't paint any straight lines in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
paintings. It's all very organic shapes and they run together, and there's no tape involved because
Hmm.
I'm trying to explore the opposite of what
Yeah.
I have been, which is kind of a little bit of a control person.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating to me how all of the emotion and so much of our psyche and things come into it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really an interesting. I think it was really the first time I can remember where it was like my subconscious was working on me in a way that I wasn't aware of. Initially, it was just like I had no idea what I was reacting to at the beginning, and then yeah, it was just like, and that's the thing. It was still tail end of working from home with COVID and all that stuff. And then at the time too, I was working on those. We were going through the IVF process and stuff, and so it was like just everything felt like a lot. And
Well, and you are describing big life things that you can't control. You can't control
Yeah,
the pandemic. You can't control whether or not the IVF
IVF,
works.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, lots of things left up to. just chance, it feels
Well,
like.
Yeah.
and the stakes are great
Yeah.
at each turn on those. I
Yeah.
mean, IVF is expensive and
Yes.
it's a commitment. I mean, beyond the financial component, you are you're drawing a line in the sand and making some hard decisions about committing to a course of action that can, when it ends poorly, it can be, I mean, it can end in death. I mean, it can end in a lot of heartache.
Well,
Yeah.
and the
And
same can be said of abstract art. When you
yeah.
start a series, when you started that particular series, it's so individual and like its own thing. There's this point of, is anybody gonna buy this? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Will this sell? And your painting, just for the listeners to know, your paintings are huge. So there's a
Yeah.
really expensive wood substrate going on
Yeah.
here, and then there is like an insane amount of paint. It's very
And
expensive to do this.
and to that point, it cannot be said enough. I've recently had a lot of discussions around that whole argument around whether you do what it takes to eat or you do what feeds your soul. And there's something about your pieces that when they're viewed, when they're experienced, they translate into there being something more there. There is something that is beyond just having a visual vocabulary. It really, you look at it and you can almost feel it looking back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the thing is it's like I really want them to have like a sense. The way I describe it is like it's almost like a sense of place. It's like it's not a room, it's not a monument, it's not a landscape, but then it kind of feels like it's like if it's some place I could go there, whether physically or emotionally or in some metaphorical way. So I love hearing that. Like, thank you.
Well, and in layman's terms, it is not commercial art.
No, no.
It
Well,
is just so far from commercial art. And to me, I would say if I had to guess, without you saying, I would guess that this wasn't you painting what you thought would sell. This was you painting what was just wanting to be birthed.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Because definitely, like the stuff that started, like the ones that are started on like the stained wood that were, like I said, like the early cousin of where these went. Like those were a little bit more of like again formal, a little bit more of a commercial exercise, because like so much of the figurative work, like those figurative pieces at the show, it's like people love it. They think it looks really great. They love the artistry of it, but it's a tough sell when it's someone's face and someone's body. It's like, they're like, I really like that, but I don't know if I'd want that on the wall of my house, like when people are coming in and out, so it was like when I went to and started those ones that are on the stained wood, which I didn't have any of those at Art on Main, that was a little bit more of like kind of dabbling in a little bit more of a commercial concern. But then it's interesting of how it did transition. These ones on canvas were just like, okay, taking that experiment and doing this is what I really want to do. And if people like it, great. If people don't, I don't give a shit. So,
So Ross, I want to dive just a little bit deeper into that because this is a common conversation with anybody that creates something that they sell.
mhm.
And that is, how do you determine whether you create what you wants to be birthed, what you love to create versus what you believe will sell? I mean, we've heard some controversy and we've heard some theory that, if you have faith and take the plunge and paint what you love to
Yeah,
paint, that it will sell. And then
yeah,
there's other artists that they've told us completely, I've sold out. I don't paint anything that I really want to paint.
yeah,
I paint what I know will sell. But they
yeah,
also say that always it dims their light. Well, it does more than dim their light. It turns their painting into just a job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know a lot of people who fit in both of those camps or kind of straddle those. And, I think I, for the most part, have always painted what I want to paint. A big part of the reason of that is because I've always had a corporate job in advertising. So it's like I don't have to sell. I've never had to sell paintings to eat, or put a roof over my head. So it's more of like um, I get to explore and do what I want to do. And when that intersects with commerce, like in someone wanting to put it on their wall, it's great just from, of course, the money standpoint, but it's even greater because it's somebody really accepting something that I love and care about. It's not a product, right? It's like a part of me, and getting someone to react in that way.
It's an affirmation.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's affirmation. Like I I always joke like with anybody like in my family, whether it's like my wife or my folks, like, and they're always like, well, we really love this paint. Oh, it's so good. You're so good, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's great. And I've always going to appreciate the encouragement and totally believe it. But I'm like, but also y'all are biased. And so there will be never more the bias will never mean as much as a total stranger walking into a gallery and either having an emotional reaction to something I created and or like taking it home with them, and that to me it's the ultimate affirmation because it's like this person doesn't know me from anywhere. They're purely reacting to what I put out in the world that was personal to, any number of degrees or from the moment in time it was created. So I'm fortunate in that way. That said, though, it's really interesting. I've met a lot of people, and I've had a lot of like because I'm in the like corporate world as in advertising as like a creative director. So I've had a lot of people who are like, in the corporate world that I work with or adjacent to, and like let's say they've got like a family friend or a nephew or somebody who's graduated from college and who's an artist, and they always bring them to me. They want them to talk to me because they're like, Ross has the corporate job, but he's still out and he's still doing the art and stuff. And once upon a time, I would talk about how um, yeah, having like a good like solid job and whatnot, like it's nice because it allows me, again, like I said, I don't have to paint to eat, so you really get to explore. My advice has changed over the years. My advice is now, particularly those people coming out of school or anything, is I'm like, don't get a corporate job, go do what you want and explore it now because you're young, you're right out of college, your mistakes don't cost much when
And
you get down.
you don't have a wife and kids to feed either, or a
Exactly.
husband and kids to feed.
Yeah, you only have you. You can live in a shitty basement apartment if that's what you want and pursue your passion. Do that. And then if that doesn't work, you can always, like, if you got a degree in X, Y, you can always then go back and get the corporate world is always going to be there. But like, so I now tell people, I'm like, go for it. Like, go for it. And if you fail, that's fine. It's easier to fail when you're 28 than when you're, 38. So
So am I hearing that looking back, I mean, not necessarily regretful, but do you wish you had done that?
part of me does. Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, your path is your path. Who knows where I would have ended up? And I'm happy with my relationships in my life overall. But yeah, I do kind of like think back about like having a little bit more, not it's not the artistic freedom, it's the artistic freedom time, or just like better harnessing that time. You're out of school and you have so many other concerns. It's like you got a job, you're trying to meet people, and things like that. And so there's, I guess, also a lot of times where I'm like, I think back a little bit and I'm like, I maybe should have stayed in instead of going out on that pointless Saturday night. I should have stayed in and worked on my craft a little bit more. Um, but I also believe at the same time, it's never too late to kind of like, transition to pursue your passions, you
It
know.
is. I agree. It is never too late. Here I am in the early stages of painting, and I just celebrated my 69th birthday.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
I'm going for it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
for it. I'm actively seeking an artist studio right now because I want to get out of the home. I want to have that
Yeah.
dedicated place to do that. I had another question that I was thinking about, but it may have just
Well,
gone away.
in that moment where you bring it back, I just want to call out how in the particular lies the universal. And there was a point where both of you shared exactly what your journey has been. And while they weren't exactly the same, there were parts that definitely rhymed.
Hmm. Hmm.
And both of your paths, whether it's you have had to deal with a level of needing that control in whichever context and using your art as a therapeutic method of letting that go, of
Yeah.
taming that beast.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. You both needed to hear it. It's funny, Ross, as you were sharing, I was thinking, wow, this really applies to someone who has been a beauty professional for the past 40 years doing hair and makeup that had to be exactly what you planned from the start.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like everything is always changing, right? I mean, because yeah, obviously like the big new thing that's like just extremely exciting and but like it's like also like oh my God, like so much, is like, yeah, I'm a father now, is like, my wife and I were fortunate to, welcome our son into the world. Like, is the because I mentioned, the IVF process, which, you know, yeah, that time when I was painting those, it's like, we went through all that. And the first transfer, because we used a gestational surrogate, the first transfer didn't take it didn't take. And it I'd made there's a painting kind of behind me, that one right there, that was at the time, I don't know if you can see it, like with
The one
Yeah.
with the
that
circle.
circle.
Yes.
Yeah. That, I kind of had made in honor of, our process and our idea. And yeah, and it was like I finished it, and then it was like a couple weeks later we found out it didn't take. And so it's like, that painting ended up taking on a whole new meaning. But then we went through the process again. Um, there was a lot of pain and a lot of work. I mean, so much of it, like, it's for me, it was like, it was the emotional pain, but I mean, for my wife, like, it's the medicines on top of it, like, because it's like the hormones and all of the things that does to your body, like, um, but it took, and here we are. So October 18th, we welcomed Ezra von Rosenberg into the world. So, and he's growing like a weed, which I'm like telling him, like, soon your dad's not going to be able to hold you anymore. He's a big boy. So, now it's kind of like what it's interesting. It's interesting. Like, it's a perfect example of like, so I painted that for a particular reason, something in anticipation of something, and then that thing didn't work out, but then in the end it did. And so it's kind of almost like it's a little bit like, you know, maybe he just kind of knew, hey, you guys aren't ready yet. I'm not showing up yet. You aren't ready. You need a little bit more time. You need another year, another 9 months. And so, it was like, okay. And now he's here. I don't know that we're any more ready, but we're making it work.
Well, I don't know. He showed up, so survey says you must be ready.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's hard to tell because it's the communication is just like it's like the different cries, right? Like, and you start to learn. It's like this one means I'm hungry. This one means I have to burp or I'm hot. The I had no idea that like the gastric issues were so difficult. Like tummy gas or burp gas or whatnot. I remember being like deathly afraid of the idea of having to deal with diapers, because I'm just like, oh gosh, I'm gonna get peed on or pooped on or whatever. And you get over that so quickly.
Yeah.
You get over that so quickly. And yeah, and that's the gap because it's just like you start to know you're like, okay, I know he's uncomfortable because of XYZ, but like all you can do is like burp or maybe some like gripe water or like the bicycle kicks with the legs, but like meanwhile it's like if it's going to work itself out, it's going to work itself out. Meanwhile he's screaming bloody murder the only way he knows how, like, and you're just like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm
It's
trying to make it better.
it sounds like Ezra is a valuable teacher too, because
He
going
is.
back to the control issues and that whole idea of being ready,
Yeah,
you're never going to arrive at that point where things are perfect. We're
yeah,
always becoming into where we need to go next.
yeah, absolutely. And so that is a learning process. I mean, and it he teaches you how to be patient. He teaches you how to listen. Both of which are things that like I'm getting better at. He teaches you how to value your time. You know, um, like it's funny. Like over the past since I've been on paternity leave, like I used to, and still on occasion, I probably haven't sat down at my easel now in a couple weeks, but I have a little bit while I've been on leave. But like, I definitely sit down with more like intention and urgency than I used to before. I used to like take my time, sit and I'll put a movie on my computer, and I'll kind of watch a movie while I paint. Now I'm just like, no, I'll just pop my earbud and put on some music, and it's like I go because I'm like, he's taking a nap. I maybe got an hour, hour and a half if I'm lucky. And it's time to get some things done. So it
Yeah,
really
it's
makes
created
you,
a edge of urgency.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It really makes you like value your time and just cut out all the BS, right? Like because it's like, soon, like it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to tend to him, or my wife is gonna, or we're both gonna have to tend to him or whatnot and be there for him because yeah, literally, like they have no means of helping themselves at all. At all. So, you are everything. And it's wonderful, it's empowering, but it's a lot of pressure, and um I think the other part of not just like, it's like every time, he's crying about something, it's like trying to solve a puzzle, because there's very obvious, is this hungry or does he need a diaper change? But like, it's like, is he too hot? Is he too cold? Is it like, so you try all these things and you're constant, and the puzzle changes like every time. So there's that patience, but I also think the part of patience that I'm learning too is it's like as much as he's like this adorable little butterball, like it's um I'm very impatient to know the man he's going to be and like share all the like things with him. I like, here's the music that daddy listens to. Like, here's the movie, here's art. Like, I'm impatient to like, share the world with him because that's how I communicate. So I'm impatient for him to understand that level of communication because right now he doesn't. It's like it's a very intuitive level. So it's like I'm having to learn to be better about those things and be patient. Like all that other stuff is going to happen, in due time. But
I'm hearing the balance is with learning patience and injecting presence,
mhm.
because
Yeah,
the best case scenario is, and if I may invoke a Charles Dickens quote,
sure.
you're going to raise a fig tree in the way that it should grow so that in your later years you can rest in the shade of it.
Yeah, yeah,
And enjoy the figs.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. No, and so yeah, it's just kind of like it's super exciting, but it's like, yeah, it's like patience in areas you didn't even anticipate, right? Um and then yeah, just having the experience and the presence, I mean, it gets the creative brain flowing too. So it's also, I'm like, I'm having all of these ideas and like creative impulses, but then also finding the time and also having the patience for myself of like, there'll be time for that. You are going to get to like, have time to like paint and create again. It's all going to happen and you're going to get to share that with him. So,
Yeah, that's very exciting
yeah, yeah.
to be able to share your love with him. And probably you could probably start to share it before he's old enough to even understand. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like I think we wait sometimes. We wait until we think they understand. It's like I told somebody the other day, I would be a very unorthodox parent if I were a parent. I would teach my children about sex before they even understood.
Yeah.
Because if you say it and they don't understand, then it doesn't mean anything. And if they understand, then they're old enough to hear it.
Yeah, 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 that makes sense.
I would do it before they reached puberty. We wait until they're 18 and they reach puberty at 12 average age, which doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's a whole different topic. But I kind of want to shift gears a little bit and
Sure.
hear a little bit about how community or what role community plays in your creative process.
Yeah, so
As a whole creative, not just painting, but as a whole creative process.
I mean, definitely is I'm a sponge. So I'm always like to be able looking and seeing what's out there and not just obviously I'm primarily a painter, but like I'm constantly consuming you know, film, literature, different mediums, music. So, and there's a lot of that informs what I do. And I'm kind of a pretty big nerd about it. Like, I'm usually the person people come to for movie recommendations, like, 'cause like I can recommend like, all sorts of things a lot of times that people have never heard of. But um,
You and Dwight have that in common.
yeah. Well, yeah, and that's one of the things. Like, it's funny. Like, yeah, having a newborn and you're stuck there on the couch. You put a movie on. It's like they have no idea what's going on. So I'm like, oh, I totally have time. And it's her turn to sleep, and so I'm like, it's totally makes sense now to watch all these like foreign movies that I have in my Amazon queue. So it's like, all right, buddy, we're watching this Russian war film from 1985. Like, it's pretty horrific, but you're a baby. You're looking at me. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I'm constantly taking everything in. I don't get out to galleries and stuff near as much as I'd like to. That's kind of one of the burdens with having like a corporate job. Because unfortunately, it's like been a constant like gripe of mine is I'm like, I don't know why always people like want to start like particularly like a lot of like gallery shows on like 5 o'clock on a Thursday because it's like my work hours are not like it's not even over until 6. So I'm like who has time to deal with because then you got to leave the house at 4:30. Like I'm like how does that work? So, but I try and get out there when we can, you know. We took Ezra to go see the Open Cedar Studios because I've got friends who have studios and stuff down there. So he got some to, you know, meet some of dad some of daddy's friends, you know, and you know, and some of them have, you know, recent littles too. So it's like these are going to be your buddies growing up, which is really cool. Because I'm excited for him to grow up in a creative community and creative environment, you know. Um, and I mean, otherwise though, I would say there are some ways, like just because like it's like I'm very kind of erratic about getting to shows and things that like I think there's a lot of ways I would like to incorporate community into my process that I'm not able to sometimes. I'm an only child, so like I don't have any siblings, so I very much have a little bit like man on an island syndrome sometimes. Like I'm a very social person, so I like to be out among people. At the same time, I'm somebody who can be in a room with by myself for days, and it doesn't bother me.
The best of both worlds.
Kind of incorporate some more community aspects into my work and in my process. And, you know, I think that's just something that's going to take like time, you know, as I transition and more into becoming a parent and then, you know, just making some other life transitions that, you know, we're working on as a family to kind of make things more of a cohesive unit in the here in the future, you know. So
Do you think there's ever a time when you might take your art studio out of the house and have it someplace where there might be more artists?
you know, yeah, I'm more open to that than I ever have been. And it, you know, I think that kind of speaks a little bit to that kind of time and place and where things maybe are in our lives and you know, some of my career choices and things like that. Because right now it's like having it in the house, the convenience of it is nice. It kind of helps like save that time. And then also, obviously, like having an off-site space is an extra expense. So it's like, is it right now? The calculation is like, is the expense justified by how much I'd be able to go from here over there to use it, you know. But that said, it's like, you know, I've got friends who have really great setups where it's like they're able to have their kiddo in there with them. And, you know, if they're, and then a computer set up, and like if their wife wants to come in or their partner wants to come in and spend time, and it's kind of like it's not just a studio, it's like a family space, but it's a workspace. So seeing that kind of exist in, you know, be actualized is, I think, a really kind of inspiring thing that is making me kind of reconsider that. But it's still, it needs to, I need to make sure it how I'm going and using it enough to justify like the expense, you know.
I wonder if there will be a time where there will be, I mean, when Ezra's not a baby anymore
Yeah,
and he's,
yeah.
running around like a house afire and
Oh, and he will.
the distractions might be so great that you would perhaps need a space away
Yeah,
from the house itself where
yeah.
everybody is.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a distinct possibility. And yeah, and I think that's all like part of that transition of kind of make, you know, there's going to be a lot of, you know, starting with this, I think throughout the end of this year and into next year, there's going to be a lot of like, I think for the better life changes and stuff that, you know, we're working hard and working towards. And I'm optimistic and excited about it. And I think the root of a lot of it is also just like, I think there's a little bit of part of me that I've been working on of like, you know, I think I'm a little bit scared of being who I am, you know? And so it's like really kind of embracing that and running with it and going like, embracing that in a way that where it's like, it's going to be okay and it's going to work itself out and we're going to be just fine. And because it's like not being scared of who you are. It's like it allows you to kind of really come into and kind of unlock whatever your power is. And so I think there's a part of me that's been holding back for a long time. And I'm excited that I think that that's going to change. And then I'm excited to have, friends and, like my wife and my new son, who I think are going to continue and are continuing to embrace me unlocking that and really bet on myself.
What a perfect segue into our conversation about becoming. Tell a little bit more. I mean, let's be specific. I mean, you know where you are now,
Hmm.
and you know what you've achieved now as a creative, but it's about your whole life because you can't be a creative and not be a parent and a husband because you are.
Yeah, yeah.
In its totality, you know where you are now and you know who you had to be to get here. What is the next step, perhaps, and who will you need to become? And when I say become, I've learned very quickly to give this clarification. When we were kids, they would say, "Well, what do you want to be when you grow up?" "Well, I want to be a fireman or
Hmm.
an astronaut." So I'm not talking about the what do you want to be. I'm talking about the who you want to be. What you want to be is the external process. The who you want to be is the internal process. Who
Yeah,
in here do I need to become to achieve my dreams that are out here?
yeah, yeah. I think it is. I think one is there is. I definitely have like a big. I have like kind of like a big safe. Like there's a part of my inner being that like or a part of me that very much thinks about safety, right? There's a cautious part of me, which is really weird. Like that's also like because it's very counterintuitive to being an artist. Being an artist is not a safe it's not a safe process. The process of putting your art out where people can see it and exposing that part of yourself is not, none of that is safe, but I think it is the kind of entrepreneurial aspect of it. There is like the really like orienting your life and betting on yourself in a way. Um, that is the part I think that where it's like there's a safety aspect where it's like I'm working on and having to learn to like let go of that. Like the best analogy I can think of is which I'm sure I feel like it. I feel like everybody's seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, right? And you know, spoilers for anybody listening to this. It's like a 30-year-old movie at this point. Like, but if you haven't seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but at the end, it's like, Indiana Jones, he's having, to go through the three tests, right? So he can get to the final test with like the Holy Grail. And there's the one test where it's like, you know, was it from a leap with a leap from the lion's head, will he prove his worth? And he's standing there, and there's literally these lion statues, and there's just this giant chasm, right? And he's looking at it, and he's like, it's a leap of faith. It's basically in this, it's like God is saying, if you have faith, if you have believed, you will believe that if you take a leap, and if you truly believe, you're going to be fine. You're not going to fall and tumble to your death. And so he takes that leap, and then obviously you see like the optical illusion, right, of like how the rocks look like the chasm and whatnot. And so I think that's it. I think it's working up to be able to take that leap for myself, um, and in a smart way, not a reckless way. I think so. I think that's the balance is um, making sure it's like it's done in a way to where it's like we're good. We're going to be taken care of. So it is smart. I think like there are those cautious parts of me that don't need to be totally discarded, but I think it's just kind of like there's believing in yourself and then there's really believing in yourself. And so
Yeah.
I think that's I'm really learning to fully embrace the second version of that, you know.
I would, just because you have brought this up, I want to share briefly my experience. You were talking about safety, and I'm hoping that this will maybe perhaps give you a little different perspective.
Hmm.
Um, I figured this out maybe about somewhere around 2017 or 18. So it's been, you know, 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Um, most of my life, I had exactly what you're talking about, that needing that sense of safety. And I would look for safe people in my life. I would look
Yeah.
for safe places in my life.
Yeah.
And they were rare. They were very, very rare. I've spent a lot of my life not feeling safe. And then there was something that came about, and I can't even remember what it was now, but somewhere right around 2017 or 18, I realized that I had been looking for love in all the wrong places. I'd been looking for safety
Yeah.
everywhere but where safety actually existed. And
Yeah.
the big aha moment for me was you can't find safety out here. The safety
No.
is in here. You
Hmm.
create the safe space for yourself. And when I got that, and when I realized that safety was my responsibility, and I'm not talking about driving safe or not walking down
Yeah.
a dark alley at night, I'm talking about emotional safety.
Yeah.
That putting your art out there, even though it may be criticized or hated or whatever. And in that, realizing that I was responsible for my own safety, it shifted everything. I stopped needing safety from other places and people. And the
Hmm.
odd thing about it was when I could feel that safety from within, then everywhere I look, I saw safe people and safe places.
Yeah. Yeah. There,
I,
there is a thing I heard in an audio book I've been listening to. That has to do has to do with business and selling. I'll just put it that way. It's
mhm.
really interesting though. And the line is what you focus on expands.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
meaning,
Yes.
it's like and the example is like, okay, like let's say there is something let's say like you need a new car and you buy this particular car that you're like, oh, I really like this car, and it's nobody I know has this car, right? And then suddenly when you buy on the car and you're thinking about the car, then you see that car everywhere all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and it's just because you weren't focused on it, you know?
When your wife got pregnant,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, everywhere you looked, you saw pregnant women.
Yeah, well, because she didn't get pregnant because we had the surrogate, but
Oh, that's
no,
right.
it's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Yeah, no, no, no worries. But
I'm
no,
really awake, I promise.
no, but to your point though, to your point, you're 100% on point because as we went through the IVF process, it was like it was like people emerging from the woods and they're all raising their hands, going like, I had to do it too. You know, um, it's crazy. It was like all of a sudden, it was like the people were there, the process was there, and what we needed was there. I mean, um, like just it's like finding for example, I mean, talk about like miracles and what you focus on expands. Like, you know, we're going through the whole process, and it's the process of finding someone else to like physically carry your child for you. It's like that's a big ask, right? And it was just we were hitting dead end and dead end after dead end, and then out of nowhere, the woman who ended up being our surrogate, she is the daughter of my dad's like best friend of 35 years. And they were just kind of having a conversation one day, and he just kind of my dad's friend's like, "Oh, you should talk to my daughter. She would love to do that. She loves being pregnant, because she's got two kids of her own." And it happened when we were just at so many dead ends, and it just and it couldn't have been a better process. And now they're, not only helped bring Ezra into the world, but like they're lifelong friends of ours and will be continue to be friends of ours. And
That's magical.
That is
yeah,
beautiful.
and it's just like it's what we focused on. It expanded and it gave us what we needed. So
Yeah, I'd like to circle back if I may.
sure.
I When you were talking about that realization about what the stakes were when you needed to, when you shifted your thinking about uh, going for safety or leaning into growth, it's the same kind of wisdom that's been written about for centuries. Ben Franklin said those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither
My favorite,
liberty.
that's probably one of my favorite historical quotes. No, yeah, it's 100% right. And it's something that comes up in philosophy, it comes up in mythology. I mean, it's another and how it weaves itself into pop culture. Like I said, it's not just Indiana Jones. I think of like the last of the Christian Bale Batman movies. Like, how was he finally able to get out of the pit? He had to make the climb without the rope. He had to do it with no safety. He had to embrace the idea that if he didn't make the jump, he'd fall to his death. And so it is a thing. It is mythological within us, like these stories. Um, and I think that's why they're true. It's why they're right. So
Yeah. So I too want to circle back for a moment, and then it's nearing our time to wrap up. But
yeah.
I want to circle back and ask you if you could sum up in a sentence or two and start your sentence with, I am becoming.
I am becoming the I am becoming the creative person that I've always wanted to be. The creative person who is truly free to create not just for myself, but create a circle for my wife, for my son, and for all of us to, truly like go forth and live in like synchronicity and harmony going forward. So that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm becoming.
How does that feel, Ross? I mean,
Good.
you just said it out loud for perhaps the first time.
A little bit here and there, but no, it feels good every time I say it, but a little scary. Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I can feel it right now. It's bringing up emotion, isn't it? That's beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
And I'm going to say thank you for our listeners because this is a moment.
Yeah, I think part of that is me being a little bit more comfortable sharing things like this. I've always, not that I'm not like an emotional person or I'm not somebody who's in touch with my emotions and whatnot, but I've always kind of projected a little bit of and found a little value and maybe a little bit too much stoicism over my life. And, just like another good quote, Dwight, is from Winston Churchill is if you ever look if you're walking and you look around and find yourself in hell, just keep going. You know? Like, and so that's been my approach to so many things, but at the same time, it's like you can kind of get buried and stuck, sometimes you gotta like look up and really look at the possibilities and think maybe I don't need to just keep going. Maybe I have control of the world around me, and maybe I can exert some power on that to make it a better place for myself and the people who are in my orbit.
We get to fully choose who we become and we get to fully choose how we show up in life.
Yeah,
And because that's what we're focusing on, that's what comes about.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying we have full control, but we certainly have influence over our reality.
100%. And I think that's what I'm learning. That yeah, it's I can choose more readily how I react to things in the world in a way to better shape my reality and to make my dreams and the dreams for my family come true.
I would love to suggest that you write your I am statement down. I am becoming. And it's
Yeah,
key to say I am becoming and not I want to become.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because it's
And then
not an
polish it a little
aspiration, it's
bit.
an
Write,
actualization.
write it down and kind of look at it and tweak it until it says exactly what brought that emotion up a minute ago.
Yeah.
Eh,
Good stuff.
oh,
Good
and
stuff.
it doesn't have to be one and done. I mean, it's something that you can revisit often.
Oh yeah. Because every day we're becoming somebody different than we were the day before.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when one of those big rocket ships heads out into outer space with a specific destiny, it doesn't stay on course. It never stays
No.
on course. It veers off course and then they have to course correct. And our
Yeah.
lives are the same way.
Yeah. There was and I don't remember his name, but there was somebody who was like he was a speaker at years ago at like one of our company's like corporate events, but he talked about like how, the creative process, and it's really true, is not like, or creative process and the creative achievement is not really a straight line. You place a bunch of bets. You're doing all of these things and placing a bunch of these bets. And you have to learn how to be flexible on where what is paying off or where what makes sense takes you. Because very much when you are going like, I'm at point A and I want to go to point B, like you are going to rob yourself of opportunity. You're going to rob yourself at growth by being so focused on point B, because point B might change. You might realize you need to go to point C. Maybe you need to go around to point A in a circle for a while. Like you don't really know, but you have to allow for that spontaneity to exist. You can't fight it.
Those are true words of wisdom, Ross. Thank
Thanks.
you. I appreciate listening to that. So I know our listeners do too. This has been amazing.
Yeah, no, thank
Thank
you.
you so much. You know, thank you so much for your vulnerability and your realness.
Yeah,
You know, sharing your wife and your child with us, and it's this has been amazing.
thank you. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. This is fantastic. And I definitely like, I don't know when y'all are holding more events and stuff, but I am gonna make it out to one. So definitely I want to come out and yeah, continue to kind of work on actualizing being out in the creative community more, because it's something I'm actively trying to work on, you know, being connected more to other people and
You
stuff. And
know, what one of the things I almost always hear from parents, you know, as a hairdresser for 40 years, I listen to mostly moms, but some dads too.
yeah, yeah,
And there is one thing that all parents eventually realize is that as they bring children into the world, that time away from that child is uber important.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
love them to death, but you got to have a break from them. You got to have some of your own time to grow, to learn, to express, to
yeah,
feel, to yeah, to connect.
yeah, yeah, because we're all still individual people, and you don't want to, whether it's a child or a relationship, you don't want to totally lose who you are inside of another person, because
Precisely.
that's it's kind of, people think it's kind of counterintuitive, but like it's good. It's ultimately not good. It's not good for who you are, and it's not good for your relationship with that other person, because it's like, if like in the case of like myself and my wife, well, I don't want to lose myself totally in her and vice versa, because that totally betrays what the relationship is. Like part of the reason she's here is because she likes who I am, and the reason I'm here is I like who she is. We love who we are, right? And so then that's the whole thing too, is like what we bring to the table is now as parents is who we are and our experiences. And if we totally lose ourselves in that part, then we're losing that wisdom we can give to him. We're losing that we're losing all that opportunities that we can give to him, to help him eventually navigate through the world, which he's going to eventually one day going to have to do without us.
Yep. I would write that down too, because there's going to be a point when you're going to need a reminder,
Yeah.
you know, and give her a copy, because there's a time when
Yeah.
y'all are going to need to remind each other, because
Yeah.
a child becomes so engrossing that you lose track of that wisdom sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Good
Awesome.
stuff. Dwight, you got
Well,
anything you want to add?
no, we're a bit over time, but
Okay.
this has been fabulous.
Well, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. This has been great. I mean, I thought it was going to be great, but it's been even better than I anticipated. So thank you guys
We're
for
so
having me.
glad that you could do this.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.